Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes and I'm back again with one of my random horror reviews. Today's movie is a very new horror movie, only came out last year, and also a very popular one. A lot of people seem to have enjoyed this one, a lot of people just went and checked it out also. So without stalling this intro any longer, today's movie is Bones and All, a romance, coming of age, drama, road horror, lots of elements and genres going into this one. But before we get into my thoughts of this movie, let's quickly run into the plot. So, this movie I think is set in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, and we follow this teenage girl named Merrin, and she is an eater, which is basically a cannibal, but they don't say cannibals in this movie, they call each other eaters. And after an incident, she is left to sort of fend for herself. So she decides to travel across country to find her mother, which she's not even sure if her mum's alive, but that's where she's going. And yeah, she kind of tries to figure out her place in life, and she meets some people along the way. And that's basically our plot for this one. So let's get into my thoughts of 2022's Bones and All. So to not beat around the bush, I really enjoyed this movie. If you've seen my video of my top 10 horror movies of last year, this was not on my list, however, I think it was my number 11. It just fell short of making my top 10. And rewatching it this time, it probably would have made my top 10. Maybe I needed to squeeze in a second time watch before the year was over, but didn't get the chance to. But rewatching it this time, I liked it just as much, if not more, because as I said, it probably would have made my top 10 if I did that list a little bit later. The original problem, main thing that sort of stuck out with me first time watching this movie was I just wish it had a little bit more horror. That's just purely because I'm a horror fan. As you guys know, this is a horror channel predominantly. I just wish it had a little bit more horror. And it's weird because all of the other elements and subgenres that come into this movie, you know, it being a coming of age and cross-country and romance and drama, they're all elements and genres that I like. I just wish that there was more horror. But this time round, I just feel like the balance of however many subgenres I just listed then, I think 5 or 6, all just fitted very, very nicely. I still wish there was a little bit more horror in there. That's just the horror fan in me. However, it just felt a lot less detrimental this time around. You know, I really started to get on board with the cross-country and the romance and the coming of age. As I said, I still wish there was that little bit more horror, but yeah, it's not as big of a negative this time around as what it was before. Continuing on from the point I just made about how I wish there was more horror pushed forward in this movie, is the fact that when horror elements come into play in this film, it is really fucking good. It's very creepy, very impactful, and I think the reason why it is so impactful is because this movie is so grounded in nature. As in, this movie is very realistic, there's nothing too over the top going on, so when horrific shit goes down, and it just feels a lot more brutal and realistic, and it just hits on that other level. One of my favourite scenes in this movie is kind of the opening where Merrin's at that sleepover with the girls. I'm not going to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but for those who have, man, do I need to say anything more? That gave me butterflies rewatching it this time, and I knew what was going to happen. I was like, whoa, this is going to go down. I started to get goosebumps. I love that scene. Sully as a antagonist in this movie, he is so unsettling. He's always speaking in third person. He's just so creepy, but he's also oddly engaging and charming, and something draws you into him. But man, he is a creepy motherfucker too. That chain of hair is gross. And also like that interaction with the two other eaters down by the lake. All of that, really, really good horror elements. As I said, I just wish that there was a little bit more into this movie. Moving on to my next point now, I also really like how they handle the cannibalism in this movie and the gore. I guess we'll get to the gore. We'll start with the cannibalism. As I said before, they don't call them cannibals in this movie. They're all called eaters. This movie is done with a little bit more style than your typical cannibal movie, because a lot of those cannibal movies are a bit more cheesy and over the top, B-movie sort of thing where it's just blood splurting everywhere and all that sort of stuff. But what makes it so creepy in this movie is, like I said before, this movie is just very grounded. So having it more realistic just almost makes it so much more unsettling. Don't get me wrong, there's still gore and all that sort of stuff, but it's just the more subtle things that go into it, like you hear the chewing of the flesh and everything, and how they can smell the bodies and everything, the noises and all the small little elements that go into it. As I said, it's done with a lot of style. But with that being said, it's not like they're dabbing their cheeks with napkins after they eat and everything. There's still lots of blood and gore, and it's brutal, really brutal at times. But as I said, I just feel like the style of having it, more grounded and realistic in nature just makes it so much more impactful with its terror. And as I just said before, I really like the grounded nature of this one. They could have gone over the top, have blood splurting everywhere at all times. There are scenes where there are absolute bloodbaths, but by all means, it just makes it a lot more impactful for a movie like this, where it's just a lot more grounded, and I found that very beneficial. So with a movie like this, you just sort of expect all the technical elements to be pretty solid, and they are. The cinematography is great, the locations and everything beautiful, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. The plot, the story in this one is just really solid. As I said, the balance of all the elements, being on the road, this cross-country adventure sort of thing, the romance between these two on the front, the drama, the horror, it's all done really, really well, and it's all wrapped in a bow, being a really good story. But the main point that I want to bring up in this one is the acting, because the acting really is super solid. I want to start with, again, the antagonist in this movie, Sully, who is played by Mark Rylance. I mean, he does a great job as Sully. As I said before, he's just so unsettling. What does he say? He goes, "Life's never dully with Sully." It's such a good line. It always sticks in my head from the first time seeing this movie. But he just does such a great job. He's so creepy. But going to our two leads, who plays Merrin is Taylor Russell. She's probably most well known for being in the escape room movies, the ones from a couple years back. Even in those escape room movies, even though they're not top tier cinema, not nearly on the same caliber as Bones and All, those were pretty enjoyable movies, but her performance in them were great, like almost too good for a movie of, as I said, that caliber. So I always was looking forward to seeing her again in something that gave her a little bit more, and this is the perfect example because she does great. And alongside of her is Timothy Chalamet, who, a lot of people know who he is. He does a great job. I want to bring up a particular part in this movie. It's not a spoiler, but that part where he takes the guy into the cornfield and gets handy with him, if that makes sense. Did he need to do that? Like, I'm genuinely serious. Did he need to do that? Like, I understand he was trying to trick him, and, we don't know what the conversation was when they first went into the cornfield, but did he need to do that? I don't know. Like, bit weird, but I'm just going to sort of leave it there. That's a genuine question. But all performances in this movie, really, really good. So we're going to wrap up this review. Go to my final thoughts and ratings. I'm going to give Bones and All from 2022... I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I was so close to doing a very high 7.5, but I'm going to give it an 8. And it probably deserves a higher score than that, if I'm being honest. It's just a factor of, this isn't going to be a movie I come back to very often, just because, in a way, it's a bit of a slow burn. It takes its time. It's a long runtime. It is an 125-minute runtime. And, with movies of that length, it's not like, oh yeah, I can just chuck this on as a comfort movie. You need to sort of zone into this one. So, by all means, great movie. 8 out of 10. I'm just going to sort of leave it there. As I said, a very popular movie. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. So, let me know your thoughts on it, guys. And as I said, get back to me. Did he need to get handy in the cornfield? Was that necessary? Could have he just, got the deed done without doing that? Genuine question. Don't have a problem with that lifestyle. I'm just saying, genuine question. Did he need to do that? But thank you for joining me in this random horror review, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Thanks. Did he need to do that?